Hello and welcome to our new parent orientation video series. My name is Avery McGaha and I am the program director at Green River Preserve. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today we are talking all about homesickness. Yes, this is something that you may be thinking about already, and I hope by the end of it you'll be thinking about not only the challenges that it presents for us as educators, as parents, as children, as youth, but also the opportunities it provides us, because I want to argue that summer camp is the best place to understand homesickness, to deal with homesickness, to learn the skills that it takes to deal with it, and to come out better and with an open mind and an openness to experience that is hard to get without trying it first, without learning those skills in a safe place that summer camp is. Okay, so let's deal with homesickness today. Okay, I think the best thing to do first is I want to walk through the definition of homesickness. How do we think about it? What is it? Where do we see it? All that type of stuff. Then we'll kind of go through what you can do, what we can do before camp to help mitigate feelings of homesickness. And then once your child is at summer camp, what do we do? What can you do? How does that partnership work while your child's with us? How do we deal with homesickness at summer camp? So let's get into it. Okay, so the definition of homesickness that I really like is homesickness is a feeling you get on your way to adjusting to a new place, okay? It's a feeling you get on your way to adjusting to a new place. Let's take that first part and kind of break it down as we move forward, okay? So homesickness is a feeling you get. What does it feel like? Homesickness, when you're in it, it can vary in intensity, but the main thing that you'd recognize is that it feels like you're in a tunnel. It's like a deep pit in your heart, and you feel like you're in this tunnel, that you are never going to escape this feeling of being totally strange. Things are strange. You just miss home. You wish you were you could be lifted up and teleported back home. Like, that would be the best thing that could possibly happen to you. It is a feeling of uncertainty, of kind of hopelessness, of just a desperation of wanting to get out and feeling trapped. This is a super uncomfortable feeling if you're experiencing it for the first time in particular, and you don't have a lot of the skills that it takes to get to where we want to go. So let's talk about why homesickness happens, and then we'll get to the part of adjusting and how we can adjust to it. So the last part is adjusting to a new place, and a new place is where you feel homesick. So you feel homesick in a place that isn't home. That's obvious, but let's tick down the things that could be different about a place that would make you feel homesick. Okay, so let's say you enter a new place and the food is different, the people are different, the weather is different, your bed is different, your bathroom is different, your afternoon routine is different, your morning routine is different, your dinner routine is different, your nighttime routine is different. Okay, yeah, you're starting to think that all that sounds very much like summer camp. And that is by design. First of all, it's by design because we want to create a totally special, unique place that help kids grow and help kids develop new skills, but are also totally designed for kids to be fun. And so that's a totally unnatural world. And so we create that, but that can be totally overwhelming when you first step into it, because so many of the things are different than in your normal life as a child. So camp is a totally new place, and that is one reason why camp is the place we kind of think of when we think of homesickness. They seem to be tied together. It's because so many things are different from your normal life, and you come into summer camp at a time when you may not have all the skills you need to adjust to that new place. So putting those two ends of the definition together, homesickness is a feeling you get when you're on your way to adjusting to a new place. So you're not quite feeling comfortable with all those different things. And what I like about this sort of middle part, on your way to adjusting to a new place, is that it tells you that there's an arrow. Like, you are somewhere along the arrow towards the destination, which is adjusting to the new place. And you can get there. And the lesson that we teach kids is that it's a skill to get there. It takes practice to get there. And so while summer camp is the place where homesickness tends to happen, it's maybe your first time that you know that you can get homesick, and you don't have a lot of the skills yet for adjusting. Those things make it likely that homesickness feelings happen. But the flip side is that it's the very best place to have those feelings and to work on them and to learn the skills, because the whole system is designed to support your child through that. And we're all skilled and trained in how to recognize homesickness and how to help your child cope with that. And, we can never really get rid of the feeling of homesickness, and maybe we wouldn't even want to, if it means that you have a place that is home and that you love. But we want those feelings to fade into the background so they're not persistent. You're not having to fight them to do what you want to do. You to get past it, to enjoy summer camp, you don't want to have to be fighting with those things. So that's what we work on. So camp is the place to do it. And dealing with homesickness, learning to mitigate those feelings, help them fade in the background, that's a skill. Camp is a place to do it. So that's how we think about homesickness. And we think that we have a real opportunity to change the course of a person's life by helping them adjust those feelings so that they'll take the next step. Like, they'll go to college, they won't be worried about not, missing home when they have these chances to have those really meaningful life experiences later on, study abroad, taking a job in a new place, things that could help us reach our full potential as people. We want to help them learn the skills to make them want to take those really important and useful chances in life. So that's what we're all about. So that's how I think about homesickness. Now, in terms of what you can do beforehand to help them feel comfortable and maybe feel out like how you think they're going to deal with homesickness, I'm going to encourage you to first watch our video on preparing for summer camp. That's going to give you a lot of steps. So please check that out, and that'll give you some of those concrete things. But one thing I do want to highlight is that as you're talking about homesickness, or if you're talking about camp, just bring up homesickness. Just, don't be worried that you bringing it up is going to cause homesickness, because that's not what does. It's it's all those things I mentioned earlier. It's that overwhelming, lots of different new things. That's what causes it. You talking about it isn't going to do it. And you have the chance to, when you talk about it, bring it up, you have the chance to lay some groundwork that can be really important and help them not feel, when they have the feeling of homesickness, feel overwhelmed. And I think the biggest thing that you can give them is just the name homesickness. Just say, have you ever heard about homesickness? Or missing home. You can use that word too. And just maybe share an experience that you've had, or if a sibling has had homesickness, they can talk about what it feels like, and then help them think through, okay, what can you then do if you have those feelings? That's normal, but what do you do when you have that feeling? You can say, all you've got to do, if you have the feeling of homesickness, just go talk to your counselor, and your counselor is trained to help you, and they are going to get you, make a plan with you and help you to get where you're feeling good and can participate in camp the way you want to do it. So that's, I think, is a really important thing. Go ahead and talk about it. And throughout that whole thing, use empowering language. Try to empower them, give them the feeling that they're in control of it, that they can learn the skill, that they can practice it, and that it's okay, and that really it happens to everybody at camp, because everything's so different, but it happens to people on different scales. And so we don't know where you're going to fall on that scale, but if it's hard, your counselors are going to help you work through it. Now, here's one thing. I have a sacred admonition to you, and that is that I'm going to ask you not to make the deal. We can be tempted to say, okay, if you don't like camp, if you're not having a good time, if you're feeling homesick, don't worry, I'll come pick you up. And the impulse behind that's really good. And, you want to take care of them, and you want to, don't want to force them to do something that is not good for them, or they're just going to be miserable. Clearly no. But the act of making that deal, even though we we kind of know that if they're having a terrible time, absolutely, but let's not make that the first thing that they jump to when they're feeling homesick. So if you make the deal, what they're going to think is when they're feeling those feelings, they're going to be starting to get sad, and they're not going to be thinking their very best. What they're going to start thinking is the best chance that I have to make these feelings go away is to play them up, is to dig into them, is to wallow in them so that my family will come pick me up, and then I don't have to deal with that. And while that's true to an extent, it doesn't get the good stuff that we want to get out of this challenge, which is the skill of learning how to adjust to a new place. That's what we want to learn. That's the golden nugget here, and we miss that opportunity if you make that deal. So don't make that deal. Instead, say, you won't need us to come pick you up. It is your job while you're there is to have a good time. It's your job. We're going to be okay. We are going to, your dog is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay here. Our job is to take care of your things while you're away. And your job is to have fun. I want you to make a new friend. I want you to try new food. I want you to taste a weird plant. That's your job, and tell me everything about it when you get home. That's what I want from you, okay? So that's what we want to see. And if you take that approach, that immensely helps when they come to camp and they're having those feelings. It really helps because we can say, yes, we're going to help walk you through this plan. And they'll go, okay, all right. And we start from that rather than, well, my mom said they come pick me up, which doesn't help anybody. So something that I'll add here is that if there is something that is going on with your child, like say that they're super homesick for like days and they're really working on it and they're just not having much success, we are absolutely going to call you, and we are going to let you know. Same thing if they're struggling to meet kind of our behavior standards, or if they're just feeling sick or they're hurt, like we're gonna call you. So don't worry, that's gonna happen. But don't make that deal right there, because it's very limiting. Okay, so we've started to transition to how we deal with homesickness at camp and how we'll communicate with you. So let's jump into that piece. So the first thing I think is important is to talk about opening day. And it's just a tip, and this will really, really help, is if you can make your opening day goodbyes, make them very short, make them empowering, and make them brief. Rip it off like a Band-Aid. You're going to drop them off. You'll set their bed up. You'll come check in at the lodge, where I'll check you in. We'll give you some baked goods. You'll talk to the nurses, and then you'll go back. And when you go back to the cabin, drop them off and give them a hug. Say, you can do this, you're going to have so much fun, and then get out of there. Because what you really are doing is you're giving them permission to just be totally independent of you and dive in, and that can be really useful. The second thing is, if they're going to be feeling homesick or they're going to be feeling sad or missing you, what you do is you hand them off to us, and we can begin our process for helping them cope with homesickness right away. We can do that sooner, and the sooner we do that, the sooner they're starting to feel better, and the sooner they're starting to really enjoy the experience. And so that is really important. Make the goodbyes brief. So I mentioned two things here that I want to touch on. So the first is when I talk about it, getting them into our process sooner. And the thing about homesickness is that it's kind of has a time frame. There is about 48 hours is kind of the expiration date for most periods of intense homesickness. If you ask any child, they might say that they're feeling homesick. If you ask them at the right time of day, rest hours when this tends to happen, or before bed, they might go, yeah, I'm feeling a little homesick. That will happen. But the key thing is that especially intense feelings fade by like 2 days in. And so what we do is we come up with strategies to help get them through this period where the future is just forever. And we get them through that so that psychologically they go, oh my gosh, there's only like 3 days left, And then suddenly a switch flips and homesickness fades away and they can focus. So that's a really key part that we're looking towards. And the longer your goodbye, the kind of the more intense those feelings tend to be in the beginning, and kind of makes our work a little bit harder. So making those goodbyes short will really help with that time frame. And the time frame is something that is really a thing that we're looking towards as we're working with a child who is homesick. So here's kind of how this works and how we get to that time where that switch flips and homesickness fades to the background. So we use a method that has been taught to us by Chris Thurber, who is a camp guru and who develops a lot of really good training techniques. And so this one is called Connect, Confidence, and Cope. Connect, confidence, and cope. And those are the things that we apply when we see a kid who is experiencing homesickness. So what it might look like is a child who on the first day is maybe crying like alone, like set off alone, or maybe is sniffling in their bunk or something like that, and we notice that sign, and we say, okay, the first thing we're going to do with them is make a connection. And so if they're kind of sitting on the grass alone, it means sitting next to them, going up to them, and just kind of making a connection, asking them, talking to them, and hearing what they have to say. Oftentimes, it's a kid who's just like, please leave me alone. I'm reading my book. You're like, okay, fair enough. Or maybe they're homesick, and so we can kind of start that conversation. Another piece that this connection idea references is that it can be really useful to have some connections to home with you at camp. So if you want to send maybe some pictures, maybe a stuffed animal or a blanket from home, those type of things can help create a sense of like, okay, there is some home with me. Like, I'm not like kidnapped in a new place. There's some things that remind me of home that I can kind of keep as touchstones during rest hour and things like that. We may also we encourage people to write letters, but particularly campers who are homesick, we say, yeah, spend this time writing a letter home, and that gives them okay, I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to feel very, maybe a little sad, and we'll connect to home, and then you write it up, and then you send it away, and it helps psychologically. It helps you kind of refocus. So that is Connect. Another piece with Connect that I didn't mention is that for counselors are trained to, when they notice a child who is by themselves, maybe looking sad or even crying, one way that they can create a connection is connect one with another child, especially on opening day. It's a great thing to do to say, okay, well, how about you please meet my friend Timmy over here, and start a conversation, start a card game, start something where they make that connection, because once you've got a connection, it's so much easier. When the people are familiar, the place starts to feel so much more comfortable. You know people, you know faces, you know names. Those things really help. So that's Connect. The next piece is Confidence. So basically, in a conversation with a child, you're making the connection, then you're doing a pep talk, okay? We like to, maybe we'll in making the connection, we're going to talk like, I was homesick too one time. We live at camp, and so we're here for 11 weeks, and it can be very... we miss home too, and so here is some things that I guess this piece, what I'm trying to communicate is that we try to make it normal. I'm trying to make homesickness feel normal. We can say, yes, you are dealing with something hard. I also have dealt with it. It's totally normal, and you can do it. This is your job while you're here, is to have fun. Your job is to focus, or is to learn some of these skills, and you can learn these skills. We're going to practice them, and then you kind of just pep them up. You can do it, all right? And then you move into the cope stage, which is where you give them some concrete things they can do to help get their minds in the right direction, help focus on the right things, stay busy, so that they can start getting homesickness, working that into the background, and focusing on the right stuff that's going to help them feel good. So maybe we'll say, okay, so what I want you to do is, on your hike today, I want you to come up with a question so you can ask your mentor, and anytime you start to feel that you are feeling homesick, what I want you to do is pick up a leaf and go ask your mentor on your hike, say, what is this leaf? Okay, and you give them some concrete action, some response that they can take. It allows them to take a little bit of ownership. It also makes them feel a little busy, gives them something to focus on. Or you might say to write a letter, and have them write a letter. Or what we can do is say, you're feeling sad, I want you to come talk to me. I want you to instead of pulling yourself out of the activity, what I want you to do is ask a friend a question. Ask somebody on your table. Ask them a question if you're feeling sad. Instead of trying to like focus inward, I want you to ask somebody something, okay? Or give me a hand signal and then I'll ask you a question or something like that. You try to create a plan for how they can dive in. And then here's the crucial thing is that then you get out of that conversation and you say, okay, we're going to check in at lunch. Go on your hike and do those things that we talked about, and we're going to check in again at lunchtime, and we'll see how you're feeling then. Okay, can you do it? All right, let's go. And then you're out. And that helps them keep busy, keep focused, keep empowered, and then you check in. And after a couple of these check-ins, you get closer and closer to this finish line where then they're like, whew, okay, I know how this works. I can focus on all these fun things that I've been trying and I've been doing. Now homesickness is in the background. Doesn't bother me so much. So the cope process is that last stage, and basically after 48 hours, it disappears to the background. And again, if there's something, it's the third day and your child has still pretty upset a lot of the time, we're going to call you. We're going to see like, hey, what are some things that we could do? What we're probably not going to do is say, okay, we're going to have you talk to them, because talking with your child usually just makes it way worse. It usually just like sets us back to square one. And so we don't encourage that. We would instead make a plan with you. What do you think we could do? What do you have a message you want to send on to them? And that sort of thing works a lot better than if they hear your voice. Oh man, do they go back to square one? So we don't encourage that. Cool. Okay, so that's connect, confidence, and cope. Those are some of the main things that we find just that they work most of the time, and those are the things that predominantly we do those things for the first couple days and things are fine. Now, the last thing that I want to tell you is a story that is kind of related to this. So, I mentioned that there's that finish line, right? There's like 2 days, that there's 3 days in, and the trouble is that if you are feeling homesick at feeling homesick at rest hour on the first day, what that means is that you could have written a letter home saying that you are so homesick and hate everything and everything's miserable and your counselors are mean, and you wrote this letter home to your parents, and then the next day you're fine, but then 2 days later you get that letter and you go, oh my gosh, what? And if you get a letter that's so dramatic, like, definitely call. It will be really useful if we didn't see it or didn't know about it, to be able to address that right away. If something that we don't know about is going on, that's really helpful. But most of the time, what happens is you get that letter and things have been fine for days now because we've gotten over that finish line. Our process has worked. So don't be surprised if your child is homesick and you get that letter. And I won't be surprised if you call me. Please do. But know that it probably is fine. The last thing is just the story of our director, Anne, who went to summer camp for the first time. And she wrote one of these I hate camp, everything's terrible letters home to her parents. And it's particularly great and memorable. The letter that she wrote home said, come get me or you die. She wrote that to her parents her first year at summer camp. So understandably, they get this letter and they're like, oh, what? But they were camp people, so they knew that she was probably fine by now, so they kind of let it go. And then they go to pick her up on the last day, and they can't find her on the last day because she loved camp so much that she went and hid in a building so that no one could find her for like a long time, because she loved camp so much. And I think this is kind of what we see, it's when you deal with something like homesickness in particular, or something challenging at camp, and camp is a place where you learned how to fight that thing and beat that thing and grow as a person, then that place to you is so special. And we find that some of the campers who have been the most homesick are ones who then come back and they're counselors, and they learned how to adjust to new places and to seek out those new experiences that they wouldn't have had if they were held back by feelings of homesickness and without the skills to deal with it. And so I think it's really wonderful because Anne has that letter that she wrote home framed in her office to this very day, and you can see it when you come visit. And it says, "Come get me or you die." And then she went to be a camper for years at that camp and a counselor, and that is what you may find. So if you get that letter, the "Come pick me up or you die" letter, maybe later, frame it, because I think what it represents is that you have given your child such an amazing experience and a chance to learn skills that is going to set them up for a life of openness to the world, of excitement about the experiences that are out there, and the world is just going to open up to your child. And that's homesickness right there. All right. I love to talk about this. So if you've got questions, please send me an email, give me a call. I'd love to talk about it. If you've got concerns, if you're worried about your child and homesickness, we'll talk about it, and we'll set a plan up for you. Okay. So that's been Homesickness. Thanks so much for listening, and please check out our other videos, particularly preparing for summer camp if you haven't done that. If you haven't read our parent handbook, that's always a great one to check out on our website. Go ahead and check that out. All right. Well, we are so looking forward to seeing you this summer, and we will see you before too long. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
From muddy creeks to rocky peaks, mentor hikes and mountain bikes.